right. Mr. Brian Kiley, thank you so much for making the time
Sure. Thanks
to
for having me.
connect. And been watching you in the early mornings now for many years. And
Yeah, for a few years now.
we're just talking about how you, your first time you got booked for being impersonating a homeless man.
It's a new goal that I was trying to reach in my career. So
You made it.
I did.
Just wanted to read a big, nice, quick introduction. You know, two-time Emmy award-winning writer, comedian. Brian has spent the last 27 years crafting jokes for Conan, earning 16 Emmy nominations along the way. You've seen him on Letterman, Leno, Comedy Central, and his sharp wit even landed him on the New York Times crossword. He's a master of craft, stand-up favorite, still making audiences laugh in clubs across LA.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Sure, you kidding me? I'm
Coming on.
honored to be here.
jiu-jitsu, comedy, right? Some homelessness.
I do it all. I'm a triple threat.
You're just talking about kids on the way up here. Yeah, the time goes by so fast, right?
It's scary. You know, I've so missed when they were the cute age, you know, when they think that you're great and they do what you say, you know, that stuff.
So it gets better, right? When after teenage years,
Well, yeah, it's, you know, they kind of pull away and all that stuff. And then
you have a
I have a boy and a girl.
okay, because you're
And,
both.
Yeah, they're both in their late 20s. And, you know, it's funny. Whenever my daughter calls me, I just answer the phone. I always just go, how much? Because I know she's calling for money. But it's still nice to hear from them.
Right? I guess it starts now, right? But you know, they're like little, you're the best, and then all of a sudden they're like disengaged.
Absolutely.
Like, what the heck
What did I do? I didn't do anything. Yes.
Because you're like more sensitive to your daughters. I was, you know, my daughters, and oh my god, like one
Absolutely.
dates the next. It seemed like.
Yes. And it's funny. My daughter didn't really, like, through 18, she was still, I didn't get any backlash or anything. And I thought, I missed it. But then at 20, then I was like, you're never going to escape it. It's going to come. It's going to happen at some point, you know. But they come around.
Yeah, good. Girls and boys are so different as well, right?
Oh my, yeah. It's so funny. Like, before I had kids, I thought it was more nurture versus nature. And once I had kids, I realized it's so much more nature. They come out with their own personalities. They have their own things. And
Pre-programmed, they say, right?
Yes,
Pre-programmed,
they
like
really are.
At birth, their DNA and their genetics.
Absolutely. So that was quite a learning experience for me. You know, but you learn a lot as a parent.
Yeah.
Not always. You don't always learn good things, but you do learn a lot.
Yeah. So how'd you get into comedy?
So as a kid, I just always loved jokes. I always tried to make my older brother laugh. And I remember I got in trouble in the 2nd grade where I took a joke book out of the library and I didn't return it because I just wanted to keep it. But I just was like a little comedy nerd, and I used to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, and he was a comedy writer.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know how people became comedians, so I saw that, and as a 12-year-old, I was like, oh, well, that's a job. I could do that. So.
And you liked it.
I liked it, and I started writing jokes, and I had these little note cards, and I had like my mother's recipe box, like a little, and I would think of a joke and I would write it down because I thought, I'm going to need these someday. And I'm sure they were terrible. You know what I mean? I'm 13 or whatever. But I just always knew I wanted to do that. And then when I was in college, I saw a comedy show, and I talked to one of the comedians. He had a comedy club in Boston. So I would go to the shows.
Is that where you're from?
I'm just from outside of Boston. So he had a show in Cambridge, Mass. My friend Barry Kermans, and then I took a summer school class at Emerson College, taught by Dennis Leary, and we did stand up in the class. And then when it ended, he encouraged me to keep going, and so I started doing open mics, and I started getting some paid gigs. And then when I graduated from college, I just went full time, and I was able to kind of do a little better each year. And then when I did
you started to venture out of Boston right away?
Yes. Yeah. You know, I kind of was lucky because there was a comedy boom at that time. So I would be doing like an Elks Club in Maine one night, and then I'd be doing like a college in New Hampshire the next night, and then a comedy club in Boston, and then just a bar in Rhode Island, whatever.
Getting your reps in.
Absolutely. And I was getting all these shows, there was so much work. So I was kind of getting to put my time in.
Yeah.
That 10,000 hours or whatever,
yeah.
So I did that for about 10 or 12 years. And then I got hired at Conan. So Conan at the time was a new show, and people were saying, oh, it's only, it's not going to last. And I had 13-week contracts. And I thought, okay, I'll go do this for 13 weeks or 26 weeks. And then it kind of just kept going. And then it ended up lasting 27 years. So, or really 28 years, because I just did the Oscars with them. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you never know, So I was able to have, my kids were able to grow up, and I was able to give them food and shelter. And so it just kind of worked out.
My wife's Armenian, right? And I think he had this Armenian assistant.
Oh, Conan does?
He did. He did.
Oh, you talking about Sona?
Sona, yeah.
Yes,
Sona.
yes.
And
Sona
I read her book because I saw like an article, and then I saw YouTube, and then I started laughing. It was like really funny, just their
She's
dynamic.
very funny. She's still with them.
There you go.
They're a great combo. She's a great foil for him.
Because she's like, they're like, they're like very loyal. And
Yes.
So they'll say it how it is though to you.
Yes, she's very direct.
Yeah.
But she's got a great sense of humor. And they have a nice chemistry and a nice rapport, So she's huge in that Armenian community.
Yeah. One of my daughters is named Sona as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, so she's great. And so they do a podcast together.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just fun to hear her on there. She just lost her house in the fire a couple months ago. Altadena.
Wow.
I know. And she's got 2 little twin boys.
Oh, wow.
But, I've seen her since. I've seen her a few times. She's just still upbeat and, I'm just so impressed. I've told her I can't believe how. And she's like, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But she's really dealing with it. And hopefully the insurance and everything will come through and get back to
halfway normal, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
some kind of normalcy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess his team. He's a guy that stays with his team.
He does.
People he likes.
He really is. He's a very loyal guy, and he likes to make fun of everybody. You know what I mean?
Equally.
He has his little jokes about everybody, and so it's a good sign when he has something with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he doesn't joke around with you, it's like, oh, that's a bad sign.
He doesn't trust you.
Yeah. So you kind of want him busting your balls,
Yeah. Wow. Did you guys film here in Burbank?
Well, we did. We were at the WB lot for TBS, and then prior to that, we were in New York for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So we moved here in 2009. Yeah.
Then you moved out here.
Then moved out here. Yep.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
But this is a weird story. When we were little kids, he and I went to the same Sunday school in Boston. So he was in my brother's class, and
Is that where he's from originally?
Yeah. So he's from Brookline, and I'm from Newton, and they're like neighboring towns right outside of Boston. And so I knew him a little bit as a little kid, and then I didn't see him for 20 years. And I would have walked by him in the street and not known him, and then ended up getting the job. And we're like, hey, remember that with the nuns and whatever? So it was just kind of a weird coincidence.
Yeah, those are those things, right? You're like, do we live in a simulation?
I know. I always tell
out of
people,
all the people, out of all the things, you're gonna
absolutely. I always tell people, apparently I was networking as a 9-year-old. I didn't realize, but you never know.
Yeah. So how you worked with them in New York, and then you came out to LA. That's right, you out to LA.
Yeah. So some people left, and I had children that needed me, so I didn't leave, and I enjoyed it there, and it was fun, and I kind of like a routine. You know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't believe it lasted this long, but I'm lucky that it did.
Yeah, it seems like everybody really enjoys being together with his team.
Yes, and so we were gone for a couple years. So when Conan,
that's a good sign, right? That's a good thing.
Totally. And when
it's
Conan,
like a family in a way.
Absolutely.
30 years.
Yes,
it is a family.
30 years. And when Conan ended, I got on the last season of Ellen, and then that ended, and then I've just kind of been back out in the wild doing stand up. But then I was able to write for the Oscars, so the team got back together, and we had about 3 months together.
Wow.
And then now I'm back out in the wild again.
Okay. How do you like living in LA?
It's funny. It took me a while. It's so big, and the comedy community is so giant.
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
kind of feel like, but as you do it more and
Have
more,
things changed a lot in these last, I don't know how many, last 10, 20 years?
Yeah,
I've been out for 15 years?
Yeah,
something like that.
I think so. I think it's just an adjustment in terms of everything's so far away and spread out and so on. And I remember my daughter, when she was going to school, she'd have a play date with her friend who was like 45 minutes away. So you drive there, I'd drop her off, I'd drive home, then I'd drive back there to get. It's like, Allie, that was 3 hours for you to play. Why don't you play with that kid that you hate down the street? Because it's too much going back and forth here.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a challenge with that.
Yeah.
But the sports here are amazing. And also it's you have nice weather and you can plan stuff. In Boston, you plan things and it rains or it snows and you have to cancel. So I think there's good things and bad things about everywhere. You know?
Yeah. Do you watch UFCs?
I don't. I'm always embarrassed because other people are talking about people, and it's like I don't know anything.
I had a friend, Kenny Florin. He's from Boston. His family's from Boston, and I went out there years ago, and I was blown away of how many Brazilians live in Massachusetts.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I would see the Brazilian flag and stuff when I
Does
lived
Brookline do they have a lot of Brazilians there? What's the city that it's like pretty much almost everybody is Brazilian?
Oh, I don't know now. I haven't lived in Boston for 20 years now, or 25 years.
It's
so
probably been the last
it's probably
20 years,
changed
right?
a little bit, yeah. But I know that's a very tight-knit community there, But, I know to start doing jiu-jitsu at 60 is kind of a weird thing to do.
What made you want to do jiu-jitsu?
I think when my kids left the house and my job ended, I think I think I needed something else to kind of keep me busy. My kids would play sports, so I was always at their sports, and I think I missed that, and I think I just needed something new, And we were talking about it's. I love the camaraderie. I love the competition. It's also a great workout because I'll do kettlebells and I'll do jujitsu.
Yeah.
And the end of those 2 hours.
In the morning, 5:30, 6:30 a.m.
I am so exhausted. I'm so wiped out, which is a good thing. And also, you just have to be in the moment. You can't think about anything else. All you can think of is, I got to get this guy off me. You know what I mean? And so it's a great. I have a tendency to kind of be anxious about the future or dwelling on the past, and I'm not in the moment very often. So it kind of helps me
be fully present, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I had this psychologist. I mentioned it a lot, but I was like, why do people that do jiu-jitsu seem a lot younger than they are? And he's like, it's interesting you say that because when you're a kid, you're in the present, but as you get older, you're always in the past or the future.
Absolutely.
And you're never really fully, present. And so it kind of brings you back to your childhood.
Yes, it's true.
Because, we have all kinds of age. We have all ages right
we
here.
We do. And it's a great group, the morning group. There's been a core of us that have been together for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So what I like is no one's trying to kill me, but at the same time, it's still competitive, So, and I learn stuff, and sometimes I'll do things and they go, oh, you shouldn't do that. You could do that. You know what I mean? And somebody help me when I make a mistake or whatever, which I appreciate that too.
Yeah. Did you play any sports or what sports did you play? Or
Well, all right. So I did play baseball, but I pretty much sat on the bench in high school. And then I wanted to play football, and my parents wouldn't let me. So I actually tried out for a team when I was 25. So I played on this. It's going to sound more of a big deal than it was, but it was called semi-pro, but it was more very amateur. But it was tackle football.
Okay.
And it was this team in Charlestown, Mass, and it was insane. Our coach actually ended up going to prison for murder. But it was like, I grew up in the suburbs, and then I'm playing in this inner city, and there were kids with bullet wounds and stab
Wow,
wounds,
wow,
and
wow.
their stories, like I couldn't compete with, And we had one kid who, when he was 16, the story goes he was stealing a car and somebody shot him with a .22, and he had the bullet lodged, and it was so close to his spine that they couldn't remove it. So now he's 29. He's a huge offensive lineman. He'd come out of the game sometimes and go, "Oh, my back's bothering me." It's like his bullet's acting up. It was unbelievable. But I had a lot of fun, and I kind of needed to get that football experience out of my system.
Yeah, yeah. Flag football is like getting big. Cause I know for the girls,
Yes.
it's like one of the fastest growing sports in the country.
Yeah. My daughter would play in gym class, and I never got to see it. And I so wish I could have been there to watch these 11-year-old girls playing flag football. It would have been so fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It seems like it's a good way to play football, right?
Absolutely.
That way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I never played flag football. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I did once. But I think we just played regular football without pads. I think that's what we did.
Yeah, so we did that too. Did you? How old were you when you started jiu-jitsu?
I was 18, right after high school.
Oh, really?
I went to high school in New York, so I was there for my high school years, and then after that, I found jiu-jitsu, and a bunch of my friends are doing it. One of the main guys, he went to Brazil, and he took me to a couple tournaments, and then soon after, I moved down to Brazil with him.
Wow.
And, set my goals really high, and went all in, and haven't looked back.
And so, and how long did you live in Brazil?
Like on and off for about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, from like 18 to like 23.
And where did you live?
I lived in Rio de Janeiro at first, and then I moved to Belo Horizonte. Belo Horizonte is how you kind of say it, but in Brazil, in Portuguese, they say Belo Horizonte. That's like one word, Belo Horizonte, beautiful horizon, right?
Nice.
It's like the third largest city.
It must have been beautiful there.
Brazil. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
People are really nice and friendly, very hospitable.
And you must have seen some incredible jiu-jitsu guys.
Yeah, that was where
Like
it was
the best
at.
in the world,
Yeah,
right?
that's where it was at.
Yeah.
In those days, things have shifted though. That like a lot of the best guys are here now, and actually in SoCal and Austin,
Really?
Texas now even these last few years.
Yeah, my son's going to school in Austin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And did you were in competitions and stuff?
Yeah, I competed as a full time competitor, and then later on found MMA and started fighting MMA and did that for like 10 years and just went all in. And yeah, it's
so
a
how nervous were you before you would have a fight?
How nervous before a fight or a jiu-jitsu match?
Like an MMA.
MMA fight?
Yeah.
I think you're always nervous, and it's like the same nerve. It's just that it's you can get knocked out. You can some bad things can happen, more worse things I think in MMA. But I think it's the same. The biggest thing that you lose is your the pride, right? If you lose, like the emotional, your heart, your feelings,
Oh yeah,
that is what gets hurt.
Absolutely.
Because if you really care and you want to do good, like you want to represent, you want to do good and for yourself or whatever. And so the biggest thing is just like your pride, your feelings.
And were there certain stages you went through before you'd have a fight?
Like MMA or jiu-jitsu, both?
Well, I guess MMA.
I mean, MMA, it's a little bit different. Jiu-jitsu, you can pretty much just sign up and the date, and then there's a bunch of people in the division.
But emotionally, did you have any kind of...
I think it's a process, right? Like there's levels, right? There's different belt rankings and there's levels of competition as well. And so I think it was a process, that you just, back in those days in the 90s, they had they didn't even have real jiu-jitsu tournaments yet.
Really?
Because I'm from New Mexico.
Oh, okay.
And so I would have to go to Colorado, and there was like grappling divisions at like karate tournaments.
Oh, that's so interesting. What I noticed, like, if I got booked on a TV show, I'd be excited, and then I'd be getting closer. And at one point, whether I'd woke up in the middle of the night or that morning, or I would have just sheer terror and going, what am I doing? I'm going to bomb. This is going to be terrible, whatever. Yeah. And then subsequently, I just learned that was just one of the phases. At some point, I was going to have that feeling of terror, and then it was going to go away, and then I was going to be fine. But it was just one of these things, and every time it would happen, I go, okay, here, this is the terror part. you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think you get better at dealing with it, and then you figure out, you find the solutions, right? Like you want to be nervous to perform,
Yes.
but you don't want to be nervous too early, where it tires you out, and then you don't perform at your best. So you figure out, like, okay, I'm not going to think about it until it's right before the match or whatever. Right?
Yes, I remember
for
years
jiu-jitsu
ago,
or fighting.
Absolutely, I remember reading a book about bullfighting years ago, and they said it's good to be a little bit nervous. If you're not nervous, it's bad. And if you're terrified, that's also bad.
Yeah,
so it's kind of that sweet spot.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So you find that sweet spot.
Yes.
Of being nervous but not too nervous.
And also, don't you feel like your experience helps you with that stuff too over the years?
Yeah, for sure. Like not knowing how much is too nervous, how much is what's good and what's bad, right?
Yes, you want those little butterflies, but not. But I remember, when I was 25, I auditioned for David Letterman, and the producer came over and was very complimentary, and then they called me to do the show 17 years later.
Wow,
I didn't even
17 years later.
I didn't even know I was still in the running. I'm at Conan. They call me. I answer the phone. They go, "This is a weird question. Can you do the show today?" And it's like 1 PM. And I go, "Yeah, okay." So they said, "Okay." What happened was Dave got sick. So Bruce Willis was supposed to be the first guest. So they needed a host. So Bruce Willis became the host. So they needed an extra guest. So I don't know how many people they called before me, but I just put my suit on and walked over there and did it. But I kind of didn't have too much time to be nervous. It was kind of like, hey, get out there.
Sometimes it's the best things, right?
Absolutely. I didn't have time to dwell on it.
Think about it too much.
Had a good night's sleep because I didn't know and all that, But I do think I 25 early wasn't ready. That would have been too much for me, And at 42, it was like, okay, I had enough experience then to kind of relax and be able to do it,
Yeah. What do you love about comedy?
There's a few things I love. I love when I come up with a new thing that I can't wait to try. Like, I still have that thing of sometimes when I'll go back to Boston and I'll see comics who've been doing the exact same act for 30 years, like nothing new. And it's like, oh my God, for me, it's still exciting when you've got a new joke and you're driving to the play and you can't wait to try that. And, when it doesn't work, you're like, but that's just
part of it, right?
That's just part of it, But when it does work, you'll
probably learn how to pivot, right?
Yes, absolutely. So that's one, having a great show, but also the hanging out, like writing for the Oscars. It was the Conan team back together. I had so many laughs all day. I spend so much time by my house myself alone. There's not a lot of laughs during the day. So when I'm with this group, and it was just so much fun to just, and Conan's making fun of everybody, and we're all and we're making jokes, and it was just I think the camaraderie and that stuff, being around. My friend always says you got to find your tribe.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you feel like that with jiu-jitsu, and you find your tribe, whatever it is, and. So I think that part of is, I get to hang out with funny people all the time.
30 years, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's what a blessing.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful,
With finding a tribe, 30 years, it's not work really, right? When you really enjoy the people that you're with.
Absolutely. And it doesn't feel like work, Of course, sometimes you have a terrible show and it does feel like work, but for the most part, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. What besides comedy, you do jiu-jitsu? Is there what other interests do you have?
I actually like to read history books.
Okay.
So I kind of pick a subject and I'll read for like a year just about that one thing, and then the next year I'll pick something else or whatever. And I just kind of like learning stuff, and I find things that are interesting, and even sometimes in a history book there'll be something that surprisingly funny that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
So I find that stuff great. And then
what are some of your favorite history, events?
Well, it's funny. I was reading this book about when they had like the colonial times with when they came to New England in the 1600s. There's one story. They find this Native American guy who's 7 feet tall. 7 feet tall. So he's just, first of all, he's a Native American, and he's such an oddity. So they capture him, and they bring him back to London. So he's in England, and the guy's there, and he sees that these people like gold. He kind of figures out this is what these people. So he says to them, you know, I know where there's a gold mine on Martha's Vineyard, but only I know where it is. I can show you where it is. So they go, okay. So they put him on a ship, and they're heading back. And as soon as he sees Martha's Vineyard, he dives over the water, swims away, and they never see him again. I was dying. I just love how he outsmarted them. And it was just a funny book about the colonials. I mean, it was just a real serious book, but it just had this funny
that piece in there.
Absolutely. So I just find just interesting stories like that just tickle me.
The comedy and the history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's so many of those, right? You know, on Instagram, you see all those reels, and they have all these like these wars and things that I had no idea about. You know?
Absolutely, there's so much out there.
In the early U.S. times we had that with Tunisia or something like that.
Right.
Like
yes.
I guess we've been in 123 wars.
Is that right?
Something like that.
Oh my God! Yikes! That's incredible. That's incredible. I think that's what the Marines started, right? With the Tunisia.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, Stephen Decatur and so on.
They were trying to. I guess they were pirating.
There were pirates
right?
there, and Thomas Jefferson sent the pirates to, and that's why with that Marine song, it's like from the shores of Tripoli to the halls of Montezuma or whatever. So it's talking about that's the first thing when they had to go because the pirates were taking their merchant ships or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. And the Liberia, how what country was even set up?
Oh yeah, with the former slaves.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And they named it after the president. It was Monrovia because President Monroe was the president. Yeah.
The capital, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I find that stuff fascinating.
What about the Roman Empire?
Yes, it's that stuff is great. I mean, it's also so insane where. The emperors keep getting murdered.
Yeah, the same common theme, right?
Yes, and sometimes by their own guards and things. Yep. So yeah, it's and Caligula and Nero, like these guys you have actual lunatics in charge of the whole empire. It's fascinating, but also just unbelievable to think about.
Yeah, and then Roman Empire, like World War II too. I think just the whole. How it was across the whole world, from Japan and everything else.
Yeah, my dad was in World War II.
Okay.
And my dad was in the Battle of the Bulge. And it's kind of funny. So my last name's Kiley, and there was a movie, The Battle of the Bulge, starring Henry Fonda, and he plays Colonel Kiley. Now, my dad was a sergeant. This is a fictional character, but my older brother told all his friends that was my dad.
Yeah,
and my dad had no idea. So these guys would come over and they would say, "Oh, you were in the war, Mr. Kiley?" And he'd go, "Yeah." "Were you in the Battle of the Bulge?" "It's him." And they would just kiss my dad's ass, and he had no idea that my brother had made up this lie about him playing the Henry Fonda role.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, just I don't know, some things that once you start watching things on Instagram, right, those things start popping up on your feed.
Yes.
Or even you talk about it, it's probably going to start coming up more now.
I know. And it is funny how the algorithm works where, what keeps popping up for me are these baby elephant videos. Like
baby elephant videos.
Yes. They're so cute. And I didn't even know that I liked them. I don't know how Instagram knew that I liked them, but
because you're spending time watching that.
I guess so. I spend time, and then now every day it's like, oh, there's a new whatever. And my friends make fun of me, but it's like I didn't even know I like this or whatever. But they're just so funny. So
yeah, it's funny. Yeah, Instagram is crazy. You watch, you look at one thing, and then it just keeps going.
There was one popped up. It was a Charlie Chaplin thing. Where he's in a boxing match. I don't know if you saw this thing. So he's against the other boxer.
It's a real video?
It's a real video that was on Instagram. It's Charlie Chaplin from 100 years ago. It's a boxing match thing. It's it's just a comedy thing.
Okay.
But you can see he's terrified, and he keeps getting the referee in the middle. So he keeps dancing behind the ref, and sometimes the referee and the other guy are face to face, and he's behind the. It's so funny, and I'm like, wow, 100 years ago he did this, and it's still funny, and. It's amazing the things that pop up in your,
It's a different time, right? From our kids. And,
yes.
And just
it's easy to lose track of an hour or two because you go, I'm just looking at my phone and I can't stop.
The days go by so much faster now too, right?
I know. It's true. So I have to kind of discipline myself sometimes and just put my phone in the other room or whatever because it's very distracting.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my kids off of social media and YouTube and everything.
Yeah, it's
Is a
also
challenge.
scary with kids because you don't know if there's creeps out there and all that stuff too, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a different time
It is.
from
It
our
is.
times. There's other stuff in our times, but now it's also, you have to be careful.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite comedians?
When I was a kid, I loved Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart.
And I loved Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah. My dad loved Rodney Dangerfield.
Yes. And yeah, Woody Allen had great jokes and stuff. He was very, I know he's controversial or whatever, but I always thought he was great. And then now there's so many comedians I love that are friends of mine, so it's people that you wouldn't have heard of, but I do get to know some really not necessarily famous comedians, but sometimes famous comedians that I get to work with, and that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know?
As comedy, like I guess let's say call it business, but just like to make a living or to work in comedy, you think it's shifted a lot probably, right? In these last 10 years from.
It used to be about what credits you had. Like if you were on different TV shows and stuff that gave you more money and that was made you more famous. Now it's about how many followers you have.
Followers, yeah.
Yeah. So the game has kind of changed in that sense.
Same thing for athletes and just everybody. People look how many followers you have,
Absolutely.
how much engagement.
Yes. So it's totally a different game now in that sense.
Do you think it's good or it's bad?
Well, what happens is there's sometimes somebody will be like a YouTube star and they put out some 2-minute thing that people like, and people go see them in a comedy club and they only have that 2-minute thing. They don't have an act really, but they fill the room because they've got 2 million followers. But at the same time, people go, "That's it." You know what I mean? So, but I also don't want to be the old guy that's just complaining about how things are now. I have this young woman that helps.
You have to adapt, right? With
Absolutely,
the
you
times.
have to adapt. And there's this young woman that helps me with my Instagram and my putting my clips out there, and she's made a big difference for me because I put my stuff out there, then people contact me and book me and so on. So you have to adapt,
Yeah. Wow. Instagram, social media. It's a different time, different age.
Yeah, and I don't know where it's headed. I don't know how it's going to be 10 years from now or whatever.
Yeah, I just saw a thing on how the AI and all that stuff in 10 years, it's going to be smarter than any human.
Terrifying. I do worry about AI writing scripts and writing movies and writing people's stand-up acts and whatever. I hope that doesn't happen.
Have you seen The Matrix?
Yes.
Have you seen the last one that they made?
I didn't see the last one.
Reloaded, I think it's called.
How was it?
It was good, right? We're basically fighting against the machines in the first Matrixes, right? And then the last one, we work with the machines.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I was just talking to some of the guys downstairs. Like I signed up for a AI course. It's a course, but you basically get an introduction to all the things that are out there. Like I work with ChatGPT every day,
Yes.
but ChatGPT, Canvas, this, that, just so I have an understanding of where to go, what to do,
right.
and what I can do, right?
And I know nothing about that. And I know my kids and I know young people, it's just part of their everyday life now. But I do worry about. I don't want AI writing movie scripts or TV scripts or whatever, And
I think I don't know. I always think positive, but you just have to be able to adapt, right? Like it's not that they're going to take the jobs, but if you don't adapt some of those things, they will. You have to be able to work with those things.
Yeah, and I do like when, if you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie, his dialogue is so distinctive and so enjoyable. I'd hate to everything be kind of homogenized by machines or something. You know?
Yeah. Like art and graphics and things like that. Like, yes, it can do but there's a certain human element that
Yes.
always has to be a
I
part
hope
of
so.
it.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want that to be taken away.
I think so.
Yeah.
But if you're not adapting or adding these things to your life, then you're gonna be left behind.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That's true.
I think. But I'm positive. I'm always positive on things. But you have to get out of your comfort zone. I think myself, and just do it. Just do it. Yeah. So I signed up for that AI. Those AI. It's one course, but it introduces you to all of them,
That's interesting. Yeah.
all the main ones that are out there.
Yeah,
right
I'd be
now.
curious how you feel at the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm loving ChatGPT. You know, my wife and everybody else. I'm always like, hey, you know, do you use this, for that, and people are telling me what they do it for, use it for as well.
Right.
And I always change it a little bit, add my piece to it, but it just saves so much time.
Well, sometimes I don't have time. If my wife is texting me, maybe I can just have Chat GPT replying to her. You know.
I've had little Chat GPT family time, and I ask him who asked. I say the name of my kids, and then who's this, you know, and then they
Really?
reads it, and then we talk about it. And it's pretty cool actually.
Wow, that's interesting.
And then I correct it. And, no, it's actually this. She did that.
It's amazing, these things just in my lifetime that have changed. You know, it's such a different world. It's amazing.
I mean, every year, right?
Every year,
like ChatGPT wasn't what it was this year. Last year wasn't what it is this year.
And when
it's evolved so much.
Absolutely. When you see those driverless cars, like you're talking to a double take.
Are you going in there? Are you going into a driverless car?
I haven't been in one yet.
Would you go right now?
Well, I don't know if I'd go now, but I do kind of like.
Would you go, Kevin, in it right now? Driverless car?
When I'm in my 80s, though, I'd rather not drive. You know what I mean? If I can just get in and tell me.
If it's safe, right? If it's like bomb-proof, right?
I can take a little nap in the car, whatever, and be on my, you know, that might not be a bad thing.
I mean, those Teslas, right? Like, I know people, they sleep in their car. They put the little tape on the camera, and they just sleep.
Wow, unreal.
And when they're in, commuting, right?
And sometimes, you know, I used to in the old days, like if I had a gig in Syracuse, I would just drive home to Boston, and I'd get home at 4 a.m. or something. I can't do that now, you know. But if the car's going to drive me and I can sleep in the back, whatever, that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, man, I've been so many road trips, right? But I think it's good. It's good in a way, for certain things, right?
Absolutely, and to see the country and to see other parts of the world. I actually got to do my first military tour last July. So I was in Kuwait and UAE and Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So
what did you see? What did you like?
Well, we would go to we did shows at these military bases, and what they would do during the day is they'd let us sit in a tank, or they'd let us use the remote control drones or the robot or whatever. So I got to play with all these military things. I felt like a little kid. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And our soldiers are so young. That's where you're getting old. Like, you're having dinner with them, and it's like they look like they're 12 years old, and they're 18 or 19 or whatever. But you just can't believe how young they are and how capable they are. It's incredible, you know.
Yeah, we have some black belts, but they were in the Navy when they were like teenagers, right?
Yes.
And they were like handling nuclear warheads and stuff and submarines and what?
I know. So a brown belt is nothing to them, you know. They can handle a nuclear warhead. Unbelievable.
And we're able to train them up, right?
Yes.
Train them.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And did you travel around the world or do it with MAA and
with jiu-jitsu, MMA, everything? Yeah. Like it's been a lot of fun.
Is there a favorite place that you like to go?
I mean, I love Europe, but Brazil for sure, number one for me, just because I have so many friends there.
Yeah.
I think those years, the 18 to 23, kind of made me, you're like a kid, kind of becoming a man, right, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like my college years, I guess, would be that.
Yes.
And so it's a part of me, and I love going. I really love going. I love the people. Like I said, I have a lot of friends there. I like the lifestyle. It's a beautiful place,
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of have your group there.
Yeah, my tribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
People that I've been friends with for 30 years.
And those bonds, it's like the comedians I started with. It's like those, you kind of went through the ringer together. You know?
Yeah. A couple of my friends, they've been coming out here for the last 5-6 years. It's been really nice. So a lot of the students here got to experience them too.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so So it's been great.
Well,
yeah.
also to be at your level, that's such an accomplishment. That's such a cool thing.
You've gotten to travel a lot.
I have. I've traveled a lot in the States, but also like I did shows in Israel.
Israel.
And it was last a year, not this January, a year ago January. So it was you know, it was a terrible time to go. So it was very intense, but people were so appreciative after the shows because, you know, they're in the middle of this war there, you know, and but also just, you know, living in Boston, you have all this stuff from the colonial period and the American Revolution, and there you got stuff from 5,000 years ago. You know, it's the
Did
River
you go to
Jordan,
Jerusalem?
all that Jerusalem and all that stuff, and so it was just fascinating. You know,
Yeah, they have those. You went to Jerusalem.
I did.
Yeah. Those four quarters, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I went to the Christian area, and well, I went to all of them, right? But Christian area is interesting because you go into the basement, and it's all like Armenian churches, because everything's built on top of each other. And then you go into the next level down, also Armenian churches. So it's interesting, just the whole history.
It
of
is.
everything.
It's just it's incredible to hear
Ancient.
about places that I heard about as a little kid in church, and it's kind of amazing that it's a real place. You
What
know?
other things did you do out in Israel?
Well, it's I guess we did shows in all the different areas, and just it's funny. I thought I was going to be performing for Israelis, but it was all people that were expats. So people were from Philadelphia, Chicago, or whatever. And every show I did, people were like, "You're from Boston, right?" You could just tell from my accent that. But
There's so many Americans, right?
so many
in Israel.
Americans, yes. And it's an interesting place because there's no crime, but there's terrorism. You know, so it's funny. I did one show, I came off, and they said, "Oh, you know, Hamas just sent a missile or whatever," and they were unfazed. And I was like,
used to it.
Absolutely. And I'm like, what? But yeah, it's just such a different color. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
You know?
You're asking me what is my favorite place that I've visited. What about you?
That's a great question. I have to say, I did love going to Rome.
Rome.
Yeah, my wife and I went to Rome for our 10th anniversary years ago, and we did take one day trip to Pompeii, where they had the, you know, that was buried
volcano,
in the volcano. But just seeing that stuff, and everywhere you went, you'd stop in a little hole in the wall. You'd have the most delicious meal you ever had in your life. You know? And then you look at some building, and they'd be like, "That's only like 400 years old. Don't even pay attention to that." You know what I mean? But just seeing these the Roman ruins and it was just such a beautiful country, and the food and everything. It was just, I thought it was amazing. You know?
Yeah. So Italy, Rome.
Yeah.
Any other place?
Yeah, I've been to Ireland. I've been to. I loved London. It's, you know, they have these World War II like walking tours and stuff that were fascinating. Yeah, so I've been to Paris and Prague, and we went to Denmark last year. I'm just fascinated by all these places, you know. And if I'm in France, everything is fascinating to me. It's like, look at that dumpster. It's a French dumpster. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what it is. It's all new to me, and I just find it fascinating, you know.
Yeah.
So I much rather that kind of vacation than sitting on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I get bored.
Yeah, I get bored.
I've been to beaches before.
Yeah. And
Same beach, right?
2 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Whereas I love traveling in a
Seeing
city,
things, seeing new things,
seeing the new
learning
things.
maybe some things.
Absolutely, and I try to at least talk to one person from that country where you're there to kind of get to just see what they're about or whatever, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, now you have jiu-jitsu, so you can add that in there. When you go travel, you can find a jiu-jitsu gym or ask me, and I'll probably know somebody out there, and you can drop in for a jiu-jitsu class.
Well, it kind of happened when I was in Portugal. We were staying in Lisbon, but we'd take these little day trips. And so we had this guy driving us to some site, and he was this young guy, and he was talking, and he said, "It does jiu-jitsu," and I'm like, "Oh, I do jiu-jitsu." I was like, I said, well, stop. I'm going to get you in a Kimura. We'll see if you can get out, whatever. But he was so surprised. Like, he wasn't expecting someone my age. And he was kind of like, what? But then we had...
You're cracking jokes. Did you
Yes,
just say
I
jokes
was.
on it?
He was.
Like,
and he
what happened just happened?
What's going on here? Whatever. So that was kind of funny. And that happened recently. I was taking an Uber back from the airport about 3 or 4 months ago. And the guy had the ears.
Cauliflower ear?
Yes. And I was like, what do you do? Whatever. And he turned out he was a brown belt from Russia.
Okay.
And I said, I come here. And he said he moved here a few months ago and hasn't been. I said, you got to come to Legacy. And he hasn't showed up yet, as far as I know. But we had a great talk about jujitsu the whole way home.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It is funny where I've kind of somehow stumbled upon this community that I didn't know existed, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, now I'm seeing this world that I wouldn't have known about,
Yeah. Where are you gonna go next for travel?
Well, I got to go.
Where do you want to go?
That's a great. I'd like to go to Japan.
There we go. Everybody's going to Japan. It's like the dollar's so strong right now.
Is that right?
Too?
Yeah. I've never been to. I've been to like the Middle East, but I've never been to Southeast Asia or something like that. And I just enjoy Japanese culture, and I'd love to go to a baseball game in Japan.
Baseball game. Oh, that's good. That's actually pretty good. I'd like to do that too.
Yeah, I think that'd
be interesting.
Supposedly they're into every pitch, and they're very
yeah. I've been to MMA fights, right? Like they had a Pride Championship, fighting championship, and that was an experience because it's like there's 50,000 people in the arena, and you can hear a pin drop.
It's such
the culture is so different.
They're so polite, and they're very organized, and I love Japanese culture.
That's really good. I'd love to go to a baseball game in Japan.
Yeah, that's
June. We're going in June. Actually, I might go in June. I was thinking to go in June.
Oh, really?
There's a competition in June. Okay.
Now,
IBGF. Oh wow. Okay.
And do you still compete?
Haven't, since the pandemic. I was doing some IBJF. I was doing like super fight things, and then the pandemic happened and everything stopped. Right.
Right.
And then I haven't gone back, but I'm going to again.
I know that the pandemic's such a dividing line. I feel like there's so many people I haven't seen since before COVID. You know what I mean? It's this weird thing,
Like you forget, or the years, like you're not sure of the years, right? Because of those years were like
they kind of lost years.
Disappeared, yeah.
And my daughter, it was her senior year of college and got sent home, and that kind of messed that up. And it's like, for me to just go sit in my house is fine. You know what I mean? But I feel bad for young people that
missed high school, missed college, missed experiences. They missed their, we're talking about sports and stuff. Like they missed maybe their senior year wrestling or
maybe they're
whatever.
the quarterback in the football team and they didn't get to do that, or they're leading the school play or whatever. I do feel bad for young people with that.
Yeah. That's life though, right? We gotta deal with those things.
That's true.
But pandemic that was something else.
It was. It really was. We're gonna be telling our grandchildren about that someday.
And then just the movie industry too. It's like we're talking about AI and stuff, but just how everything's shifting so much.
I know. And there's so many things being shot in Vancouver or Atlanta or Toronto or whatever. And I have so many friends that are out of work. It's terrible. So I hope the business kind of comes back soon.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody has to adapt some AI into their lives. I think that's my.
All right.
That's my. I was already talking to the staff downstairs, like that. I'm doing this course, with all these things. Like, oh, okay. I
I'll
should
be
do that
curious
too.
when you finish it. What changes you make?
Well, because right, like I already know, right? Like, okay, like what do I need? What can I do? I went to Microsoft that had Copilot. It's like their AI, like for business and stuff. And so it was like their first. They just released it, and you can have a staff of like 100 and something people, and you can probably do it with like 2 or 3 people.
So you don't need Kevin anymore. Is that what you're saying?
No, Kevin. We're on quantum field levels. You gotta operate on that. It's things you can't see but you feel.
Gotcha.
And that's where I stay. That's where we create.
I see.
This other stuff is just busy work.
Gotcha.
So we gotta automate those things and then make those things happen.
So his job is safe.
Look at him. You know that movie Beautiful Mind?
Sure.
That's Kevin. He's the Hispanic version. He's making calculations on the board in his brain. So he's like doing 2-3 things at the same time, but it's all from the heart, you know?
That's so funny.
We have fun, right? That's
Absolutely.
key, right? With your
Oh my
tribe,
God. Absolutely.
You know,
That's
you
the
wouldn't
whole
be
thing.
working for all those years with
That's
the same
whole
people.
thing. Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. This was great. This is so fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So you wanted any things you want to shout outs or?
Well, I have a special. I did what they call a dry bar special.
A dry bar special.
Yeah, Professor Joey always teases me, but so it was shot in Utah in a bar where there's no alcohol.
Dry bar special.
So it's a
That's
dry bar
funny.
special, and it has to be completely clean. And even like I always work TV clean because I was always trying to do my stuff on television.
Yeah.
But this you have to squeaky clean. It's like doing a church show.
Okay.
So that was it's a bit of a challenge, but so I did that, and it's on YouTube. And
How do you find it?
I've gotten a bunch of work from it, and I've gotten a bunch of nice.
How would I find it, or how could
Just
I?
go on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it just punch my name on it. YouTube, dry bar comedy, and yeah, I mean it's also so funny because with jujitsu, like you're gonna roll with somebody and you're about to start, and then right beforehand the guy will go, "Hey, I like your joke about gluten or whatever." You're like, okay. And some people, it's like, "Oh, I didn't even know this guy knew I was a comedian." You know what I mean? So it's like I think they're just trying to throw me off I think they're trying to get in my head before.
So mental warfare.
That's true. So, and then I work.
So you'll take it easy on them.
Yeah.
Be distracted.
Well, they don't need much for me to take it easy. But I do the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa, and I do Flappers in Burbank. And
Okay.
So I do different clubs.
I'd love to
around
go
here,
to a
too.
show of yours.
Yeah.
Let me know or let us know.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. We used to go to Joey Diaz. You know Joey Coco
yes,
Diaz? He used
yes.
to go to Flappers sometimes.
Yeah.
And we'd all go out and support. And it was fun.
Yeah. That's a really fun place.
Yeah, we would just crack his jokes, and he knew some of us, so he would like pull out some random things, you know.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun.
He's a big deal. So he's done great.
Yeah. I read his book too, like his life story.
Oh,
pretty much.
really?
And then I was like, wow, this is something else. You know, his life has been just so crazy.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things you don't know about people until
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and you're like, well, I've known that guy for years. I didn't know any of this.
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I met him in New Mexico because I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they were filming The Longest Yard, the remake.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. You with Adam Sandler?
Adam Sandler, yeah. And so they were out there, a bunch of the guys. There was Mo Smith, just a bunch of like MMA fighters. You know, Bob Sapp, he was the fighter, and he was in the movie as well. And Joey Diaz showed up one day, and he's like, "I'm gonna come and train, dog." You know, like that. And I was like, "Okay, great," you know. And he didn't in New Mexico that time. He was there, but then years later, when I moved here, he showed up here in Burbank.
Nice.
And I saw him walking from the sidewalk. He almost turned around, but I saw him. I was like, "Hey, Joey, what's going on?" And he came in, and he ended up training for years.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see. And then I read his book, and that was his like big break, right?
Right.
That movie,
right.
and just to see where people are at, and you know, because you don't see everything, right? When you
Absolutely. And some
I see it to like read or listen to his memoir, right? And then you see like, wow, that was what a life.
Absolutely.
And to come around full circle and, use all those things for good too.
And you pull for somebody like that,
Being vulnerable
Yeah.
and just putting it out there.
Absolutely.
The good and the bad, and try to be better for
Yes.
it, right?
Yes. I feel vulnerable doing jujitsu every morning. That's when I'm most vulnerable. They go for my neck.
What's your favorite submission?
I do the Americana. when I can.
Americana, huh?
Yeah.
From Mount?
Yes. Or even side control.
Side control.
Yeah. And a couple people tease it where it's like it's my go-to thing. But it's good, that I'm trying to branch out and do the gift wrap and try the Kimura and try try to get different things. But usually I'm the one that's trying not to tap, you know.
Well, man, thank you. It's been so much fun having you in the gym, and it's really nice to, you know, Kevin has been telling me you guys got to have him on the show and talk to him, you know.
Well,
so
it's a great, you know, we have a group text for the morning group. So it's a fun group, and there's just a lot of laughs all day with the text that they're sending.
You know, he sent me that picture of you in Marcos's car, and I think I was laughing the whole day, you know, because it looked so like I was like, I believed it when I first saw it.
That's right. So
you had your mouth open.
Yes,
you know?
Professor Joy's like, hey, can you do me a favor? So he had me get in his car and pretend like I was a homeless person who stumbled into
You
his
covered
car.
your face so you didn't see it. You couldn't tell who it was.
Yeah. And he kind of directed the whole thing, and I forgot about that. That's so funny. I think that might be my big break.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a website, or
I do. You can go to briankiley.com and or check me out on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, or Instagram. Yeah,
awesome.
It's Kiley Brian Comic on Instagram.
Awesome. You're awesome. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was fun.